Father, would you lead us in an opening prayer?
In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, the Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Ghost.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
Our Lady of Wisdom.
Pray for us.
Saint Joseph.
Pray for us.
Thank you, Father. For those of you that don't know, Father McFarland is our chaplain. So welcome to the April installment of the St. Joseph's Businessmen's Association's Featured Speakers Series lectures. We also welcome those of you who may join us through our streaming online channel. Just a few notes before we begin. By way of disclaimer, our guest speakers are just that, our guests, and so they don't necessarily condone, agree with, or hold all of our views, and vice versa, of course. After our speaker is finished with his lecture, he's graciously consented to open the floor for questions, and then once those questions come to an end, or we need to bring the meeting to a close, I'll come to the podium and officially end the meeting with a prayer, probably. I'd like to welcome all the members of the law enforcement community who've come. Chief Winkleman, our police chief here in St. Mary's, thank you for coming. Welcome. Officer Belderock as well from St. Mary's. And then our county sheriff, Sheriff Greg Riat, is here with us, and I believe Under Sheriff Yeager. Did I get that correct?
That's correct.
So we're going to go ahead and begin. I know there's some other things going on this evening after this meeting, so I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. And really, Sheriff Riat doesn't need very much introduction. I believe you've been our sheriff in Pottawatomie County for 15 years at least, over 15 years?
Yes, sir. 15
perhaps.
years.
So also, you were here last year. We welcome you back, and please join me in welcoming him to the podium. Thank you.
Tonight, Shane, you make sure everybody's around. It's truly a pleasure to get to come back and get to talk with everybody. I think one of the most important things we can do as law enforcement is to be part of the community, and members of the community. You sit there and you watch at some of the big agencies and you see the turmoil and strife that's got going on, the public against the police. And I watch that, and you got to kind of wonder what went wrong. I think in today's society, we need the police more than ever. But we need a police department that's accountable to the people, responsible to the people, and that has common sense. So I'm thankful that we get to come out and have meetings like this and talk to people, because it gives us an idea of what you guys want from us and what we need to do better, and also talk about some of the things we got going on. One of the things that we like to do is we love questions and answers. I'd probably bore you here in a couple of minutes if you just have me talk the whole time. So anytime you guys got a question or comment or want to talk about something, feel free. The undersheriff and I were detectives. I started in 1999 or 1989. I think Shane
1993.
So we worked together as detectives for quite a few years. Shane worked drugs. So we seem to be getting more of that in our community, and one of the reasons I brought Shane is to introduce him to you, but also he has very, very good knowledge of the drug stuff. So we talked about some of the things we got going on in our community right now, and right now we have a lot of thefts, it seems, going on. I know Josh sent me an email about a trailer that was stolen in town. We had a trailer stolen just outside of town last Friday, I believe, that was 21 foot tilt bed trailer. We got reported today that we had about $26,000 skid loader, a trailer, and
Zero-turn railway.
yeah, zero-turn lawnmower. So we're having a lot of thefts go on. A lot of their thefts are driven by the drug trade. If you saw in the paper, and John's real good about it, and I appreciate the forwarding on our little press releases that we put out on stuff. We had a skid loader and a trailer stole from Reed Company in Wamego, and we were fortunate to have gotten information on that And the owner went down and actually found it and contacted us, and the detective knew who the suspect was. So we were able to take him in custody. That's one of the cases that wasn't illegal drugs. So that's almost rare anymore with some of our thefts that we have going on. So as far as things in the community that we have happening right now is the thefts, and I think the drugs, and we have I think marijuana right now is probably as prevalent as I've ever seen it. And I believe that marijuana in my world is a bad drug. I know you'll hear people talk about that they use it, and it's not, it's okay, it's legal in Colorado, but I've talked to guys that have went to methamphetamine, and they've said that marijuana it introduced them, and they went to another thing. So, again, working together as a community, we've got to go after the marijuana, we've got to go after the dealers. We need to allow our children an opportunity to grow up in our communities without the presence of illegal drugs, because that's what leads to a lot of our crimes.
It's a crutch of a lot of it.
Yeah, they have to steal to have the money to purchase the drugs. So we have, at the sheriff's office, in the last couple of years, we now have 3 drug dogs, and they're really good dogs. They're very well trained. One of the dogs is a Labrador, and the reason we did that is 2 of our dogs are a little bit, they're kind of ornery looking, you know. They're
Belgian Malinois.
Yeah. So when we take them to schools and stuff, like one of them's got kind of a bad disposition. He's not real friendly, and we keep him leashed all the time. He's not fun. And then the other one's a pretty nice dog. But we wanted a dog that we could take if a business would like us to bring in a dog, if the schools would like to bring a dog by just to let the kids see what they are, and then we can also demonstrate how good the dogs are. So we also got a Labrador now, and the Labrador is a really nice dog. You can pet it and play with it and stuff, but at the same time, it's very well trained and it's able to sniff out drugs. So, along with the thefts that we think are being driven by the drugs, things that we've done to try to combat this are with our drug dogs, and then also our investment, the tips that we get from the community. And that's one of the things that I really want to hit on tonight is I think it's so important that we work together as a community. Our whole county needs to work together to try to pass on information so we can try to stop the drugs, stop the trade of drugs, and also work on the thefts. Checking on our neighbors and stuff like that. If somebody's gone, make sure and look after them. If you see a suspicious vehicle, you know, take that tag number down, and don't be afraid to call us. We've seen that through the years. People, in fact, we had a daytime residential burglary at Christmas time, and I won't mention the fellow's name. He's a farmer, and he's a real nice guy. And he saw the suspect vehicle there. He didn't realize it. But when he saw the police cars, he told me, he said, as soon as I saw the police cars, I knew I made a mistake. I should have called that vehicle in. So if you guys, you know, think of all the taxes you paid your whole life, you know, we owe you, you know? So it's okay to give us a call. You know, that's what we're there for. And I have a very good staff of young guys and gals that are more than willing to work. St. Mary's Police Department, Josh has taken over. We're very customer service oriented. We are going to do our job, so it is business, but at the same time we try to do it with a very, very good amount of common sense and a very good attitude. So, guys, you got any questions on anything? Yes, sir.
If we call 911 for a police emergency, do we get your department? Where does it wind up, the call?
Everywhere except for the city of Wamego. The 911 calls in Pottawatomie County will go to the sheriff's office, and I guess I should say part of Manhattan, the city of Manhattan goes to Riley County. So in St. Mary's, you'll go on up to the sheriff's office, and then we'll dispatch Josh or his folks out to a call.
Unless it's a cell phone. Sometimes cell phone towers, depending on where you're at in the city, it'll pick up on that cell phone tower and route you to Wabunsee County or maybe even Shawnee County.
Yeah.
So cell phones are a little different, but all landlines, like Sheriff said, go to the sheriff's office.
Okay.
So if they call in on a cell phone and they get Wabunsee, should they say to them, please patch me over to Pottawatomie?
Tell them your emergency. They'll ask your emergency, and they'll typically patch it into us, a direct line. They'll patch it to us that way.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
you mentioned drugs and especially marijuana as a gateway to other more dangerous drugs. Are the drugs coming from within Pottawatomie County, or are we seeing the influence of coming from outside?
I would say both. I mean, there are, no community is immune from drugs. Living between two big cities, Topeka and Manhattan, we're in the middle. So yes, typically we see a lot of the drugs come from Topeka area, Wichita area, your bigger cities, or where your more supply is, that brings it in here. And then we have our dealers that distribute it throughout Pottawatomie County.
Are they using I-70 or are they coming through 24?
They use both. I mean, a lot of them. So it's no particular route, but typically your more of your couriers are gonna use I-70, but our local people are utilizing 24.
Typically, how many dealers are we dealing with, like in the St. Mary's area?
I don't know specific as far as how many dealers. Anybody, so if you give me $25, if you know that I'm going to buy drugs, and you give me $25, and I go to Topeka, and I'm not per se a drug dealer, but I pick up $25 worth of drugs for you, well, that constitutes, by statute, that is, you're distributing drugs. So, there could be a lot of dealers, but as far as your main dealers that are dealing ounces or pounds of marijuana or pounds of methamphetamine, it's hard to put a number with, but there are dealers amongst the communities. And again, no community is immune from it. St. Mary's, Wamego, Manhattan, they all have their certain grade of level of dealers. Yes, sir.
Does the increase here coincide with the legality in Colorado?
I would think so, yeah. You see that they think that now that they're seeing legalization of it in other states, that it's more readily accepted, but really it's, in our community, I agree with the sheriff. When I worked narcotics, I've talked to a lot of people that utilized or used drugs, and they'll tell you that marijuana definitely introduced them to other drugs. And considered a gateway drug, is just like the sheriff said. There's I-70 task force now that are trying to deter that. But yeah, it's being mailed in, brought in by vehicles, but yeah, we have seen an increase in it that way also.
I think it's sad that, I graduated Wamego High School in 1982. I actually went to St. Bernard's when they had a Catholic school for 2 years until they closed it down. And then we went to the public school there, and when I first started school, Bellevue still had a school. But anyways, I never got once off of drugs in school, and it was so, looking back, it was so clean, and so, it was a good thing. And I think our values are, to me, the Colorado thing, it's just dragging us down. It's our morals and our ethics and our values are just degraded even more, because the whole entire state says it's okay to do this, and it's not. We had last month we went to jail training, and we had a doctor there talking to us about how marijuana affects the receptors in your brains, and how it essentially makes them useless, and how long it takes after you stop smoking if you get them back, to get those, and then people will graduate from marijuana to heroin. And now Colorado has, I don't know if we call it a heroin epidemic, but they have a huge heroin problem. They're predicting now that Kansas will face a heroin problem. So you got to kind of scratch your head and say, what were you thinking? And from what I've heard, it was revenue. That it was the money that would generate, and is it really worth selling our kids and stuff to, So just to add a little bit more on it.
Yeah, I graduated from high school in Southern California back when the Earth's crust was still a little warm. But there were 3, 4, 5 guys in the school, that either were using it or wanted us to think they were so they could be bad. But everybody looked down on them. They weren't accepted into the groups, and I don't know where the good old days went.
Agree. Yes, sir.
Oh, I just wanted to corroborate what you were saying about just marijuana use alone. I come from Colorado and I worked in psychiatric healthcare for quite a few years, and I can vouch for, I dealt with many schizophrenics who got that way just from marijuana use alone. Just no other drug, because it acts on the brain and the nervous system that way, so quite a few schizophrenics have known because of that. Very bad.
Yes, sir.
If a person from Colorado gets stopped in this state and they found in their possession marijuana, where does that go? Does that mean, are they legal to possess that in their vehicle, even if they had a doctor's prescription for it?
No, still illegal in the state of
Okay.
Kansas.
Just want to be sure of that.
We actually we arrested a couple of kids from Oregon, I believe, and they had, I think if I recall, they said they had a medical prescription or something like that, and we still arrested them, so. Have a question, sir?
I hear about, besides marijuana, I hear about meth. Does that mirror, is that all across the country, or is that particular to our area?
It's throughout the country. I mean, methamphetamine, back in the early 70s, 80s, it was more of a biker. It was a biker thing affiliated. It was hard to make it. They called it P2P dope or biker dope. It was a lot harder to make. Now it's more readily available. And now you see the Mexican, what they call Mexican meth is crystal meth, but it's throughout the United States.
Somewhere it's kind of interesting, there's a balance. So when I took over sheriff a long time ago, he was a good drug detective. We probably did 40 meth labs, 30, 40 meth labs in the county. And then the state started putting people away. You go 10 years?
15, I mean, it was
10 to 15 years
yeah.
with the lab. You can't find a lab. And I know, and you're just talking, I know you can't lock everybody up. You don't want to, and you can't. But at the same time, it was proven, when you get serious and you lock people up, we don't hardly get
It
in
has
that
an effect,
anymore.
yeah. It definitely has an effect.
Yeah, it's so, of course, they bring it up from Mexico now, I think, is where a lot of it comes from. So somewhere there's a happy medium we've got to find where we have some consequences for the drugs that gets it stopped. Yes, sir.
Is the use a rural use now, or is that just where they grow it and manufacture it?
I think it's, from what I'm hearing in some of our schools, I think it doesn't make any difference, your social status, your region that you come from. It's the marijuana is, what we're hearing right now is that marijuana is real big in the schools, some of them. And it doesn't make any difference, and that's sad, it really is.
Are they smoking the hemp we see growing in the mountains?
A lot of times, yeah. The THC level anymore, back in the day they called it ditchweed. Now you see where a lot of times you would see people from Texas come up that they would use it to cut. They'd cut our ditchweed and mix it with the other more potent stuff to just get more for their money. But you see our THC level, just like Sheriff said, the THC level, like out in Colorado now, they're saying it's more, originally marijuana wasn't addictive, but now with the THC level being so high, it has become more addictive, just like he said, it has definitely effects on your brain, and it is becoming more addictive with the THC level. So yeah, they are smoking, they'll go out and pick our ditchweed.
Tuttle Creek's where they used to really pick her at. That's where we'd capture them up there about every summer. I guess that was good.
Yeah.
Good weed, they would say, but great big tall stuff, and that, they'd have, U-Haul trailer and stuff, and they'd have maps.
Yeah.
Where they'd come from out of state and stuff like that, so, yes, sir.
So does it grow wild in here, or?
Weed?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you'll drive around some of the roads and stuff, and you might see a plant, and you'll notice it looks different from the others, and that's because somebody's picked, the buds off of it, so.
I saw some in my yard when I first moved into my house last year. Just one little sprig,
You live in town?
I live in Bellevue.
I've actually got 3 questions. The first one, are you seeing kids in the schools in our area doing other things besides? Are they doing harder
Prescription pills.
Oh,
Prescription pills seem to be a big thing right now. So they're.
is there a trend that way where even these kids are now doing you know, stuff like cocaine or I don't know.
Not so much coke, like the sheriff said, marijuana is our big drug right now in the schools, and prescription pills. It seems like, you know, everybody has prescription pills in their cabinets, and that's what I encourage everybody, is to lock your pills up. If you're done with them, dispose of them, call the health department, there's drug drops throughout, DEA has, but, you know, any kid can go to the cabinet and get oxycodone, hydrocodone, any of your narcotics, and then they give them out. Adderall, a lot of times, you know, is a big thing that we see amongst the high school kids.
Okay, and then the other thing I'm seeing, maybe I'm imagining it, but I'm seeing a lot of the skid loaders and the trailers, and it just seems like every month or every 2 months, these things are being stolen. Where, is this one group of people, or is this, why those things, and where are they going, I guess?
What do they do?
Yeah, how do they dump them off? They drive out with this stolen thing the next day they're driving along the highway with these things?
Well, no, I'd love to say that we get all of them back, but we don't. And I don't know exactly for sure what to do with all of them. The guy that took the one from Reed Company probably wasn't all there, and he's got a lot of problems. And so, and again, that's going up for court, so I won't say a whole lot about it. However, I think he lives in a different world. And
Well,
so
he
that
seemed
one-
real casual in that video.
He was.
Boy, this guy.
Hour and a half. So that was a clue that he probably wasn't a pro.
Okay.
But these guys will take these, they'll resell them. They'll take them down the road to resell them. And you know, I don't know how many people, there's probably a lot of people that wouldn't really give it a lot of thought if they come across a decent deal on a skid load or something like that. I don't know that they'd call the sheriff's office and say, hey, would you come out here and run this for me? Especially if it's not a super cheap, you know, if they're not selling it for $1,000 bucks. If a guy pulls in your drive and says, hey, I got this 30,000 skid loader, give me $1,000 cash and let me get out of here. Probably. I believe the FBI has a task force on heavy machinery down there. So, but I think this year we've lost 3
At
this
least.
year.
And we see them where they actually steal the parts off, put them on other skid steers, buckets, stuff like that, so.
Do they have keys for these? Are
They
they able
can
to?
get them, yeah.
And a lot of construction sites, you know, it's easy because they're out there and they're available. You drive by it every day and they can see them sitting out there, so it's not like it's behind closed doors.
We did I don't know if you guys remember, we did a search warrant, was it last winter, JD? And this guy had tons and tons of stolen stuff. I mean, for years. He went to the Manhattan Co-op, or CK Processing, I'm sorry. He went to CK Processing, he stole their lawnmower. And I tell you, Bob Sauerbrunn was our deputy, a fantastic job him and other deputy did, but they drove the lawnmower through a cornfield when they're stealing it. And when they did, they gathered all kinds of corn stalks. And 3-4 miles, it'd drop a corn stalk off every so often. And Bob was an Army Ranger, bless his heart, and he's been with us for 30 years. Bob followed the trail of corn stalks, and they said there was times they would go, you know, 100, 200 yards without a corn stalk, but he kept it up. No tire tracks, but we got a search warrant, and they had like stolen, 3-4 stolen vehicles, 2-3 stolen vehicles, tractor, bulldozer, all kinds of stuff. So, you know, there's no telling. That guy was in operation for probably years, and we did not know.
My third question, would you guys mind if Chief Winkleman came up and joined you guys?
No, love
and
it.
Introduced himself to us? Would you mind?
Absolutely.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you?
I'll turn red.
That email did say you might get
Oh, yeah, I figured yeah. If I turn red, it's either blood pressure or the energy drink or I hate coming and talking in public.
That's okay.
Just kind of what Greg was saying, I think with the county that we have, we've got so many people that have farm machinery that do their own construction, do their own things like that. Highway 2499 isn't uncommon to be, you know, see a pickup pulling a trailer that's got a skid loader or it's got, so once it gets away from the residents or the business, it looks like half of everybody else that drives down 24. You know, so really, the biggest thing that we have challenge-wise when it comes to law enforcement is obviously we've only got so many eyes when it comes to deputies and officers. to be really effective, we also rely a lot on the community to kind of keep eyes on it as well. You know, if you see somebody, the vehicle was the estate, and a vehicle that comes into the property that they don't recognize, sometimes that call, I don't know who that guy is, might turn into something that, you know, we might find the skid loader that was stolen, you know, in Northwest County. You know, so it's really important to kind of keep an eye. And then he'd also stated in reference to the drugs. I think a while ago when the kids were looked down on when it came to drugs, with social media and cell phones and people talking anymore, I think people are so much more aware of what's going on. And I think people hear and they see about it that marijuana becomes kind of commonplace. It's almost like the alcohol. You know, when you were younger, alcohol was probably the gateway drug that would lead into something else. Well, marijuana is kind of that way now. It's kind of become commonplace. And I think it's more readily available because people can talk about it. Snapchat, Twitter, email, Facebook. They know somebody or related to somebody that they can get it from. And I think in this county, I don't know if necessarily the use has gone up in this county as much as this county is getting bigger. It's inevitable that we're getting more and more people in. And as those populations rise, we're going to start getting some people that are a little bit shady, and your number is going to go up as well. Well, I'm not going to go out. I'm staying out of that. But at St. Mary's, you know, I think there's a pretty good amount of marijuana that is out. That's probably our biggest thing. Prescriptions, I believe, are an issue as well. I don't see the younger kids quite getting into the meth and the harder drugs yet. The prescription pills kind of bother the most. Oxycodone, Oxycontin, things like that. Prescription drugs that are signed out by a doctor that are more potent than heroin. You know, it is a legalized heroin that you get prescribed from your doctor, and it's cheaper than buying it on the street. And I don't know how many people have it, and I'm not going to ask people to raise hands, but you very well might have that in your own medicine cabinet in your house and not realize that it does the same effect to your body. Well, these kids are seeing pills and seeing something that was prescribed, and well, Billy Joe's been doing it, so you know they pop a couple before into our cities. Marijuana is absolute gateway drug. Prescription pills just scare me beyond belief because they're so readily available.
Could one of you tell us, how does the Sheriff's Department interact with St. Mary's PD and Wamego PD, and who takes lead on what?
Well, I can say from our experience, we try to handle what we can in our department, but being smaller, we have limited resources. I try to get as much as I can. He's got a narcotics detective that I try to keep in contact with, you know, fairly regularly. And if anything gets out of control or we get a good lead, you know, we'll do everything that we can to try to help and assist, but a lot of times it's a little bit more than we're going to be able to handle. So we try to help assist in any way that they can with the resources that they've got. Wamego's the same way. I think Wamego's done a pretty good job when it comes to doing some of their own drug cases, but they're the same way. They need help as well, and the Sheriff's Department's always been good about trying to come in and help. But you know, they get their own leads as well that they follow. They don't only just have the cities, they've got the rural community they've got to watch out for as well. But for the most part, if I get something, I'll try to run with it a little bit, and then I'll get to a certain point where I'm going to need help, and I'm going to have to call surrounding cities or the Sheriff's Department. And I think he knows if they get something that you know, one of the officers for our city that might be a little familiar, they've done a pretty good job of sharing that information with us, and we try to help keep some eyes on as well.
Every city's different, so I'm real proud of St. George. St. George has got a new chief of police. I think he's very good, and those guys are really, really working hard, and they work really close with us on stuff. Wamego's got, 8 full-time officers now, I believe, 8 or 9, and they've got a very good police department. We work pretty close with. We did a search warrant in Wamego. In fact, very pleased with that. They were dealers, you know, in our opinion. So we work good with the local police departments. We have jurisdiction throughout the county, and we want to make sure that we support the police department. But we're also here for the people too. So we don't want to ever step on the police department's toes, but at the same time we won't refuse service to anybody. So we're here at the end of the day. I tell you how the best way to summarize it. I tell every one of my deputies, go out and make things better. That's what you need to do. You need to make our community a better place. So that's what we try.
Sheriff, what is the percentage of repeat offenders for drugs, and is the sentencing and the time that they're getting sufficient to deter?
No, it's not. We have a lot. I think we have a lot of repeat offenders. I think our judicial system has some flaws. With that. I'm sure we do too, you know. But I think there are some huge problems with repeat offenders. Absolutely. I can't give. I don't know off the top of my head if it's 50% or 80%. But we see
there is a lot of repeat.
Yeah,
Very high.
it really is. And you know what I talked about. I don't know what, and that's I don't know. I wished our state government. There's got to be a happy medium. You can't put everybody in jail. It won't work. And there's things that aren't that bad that maybe we are putting people for. But I know the drug thing is bad. There's one thing I know for sure. The drug thing is bad. No good will come from methamphetamine. I guarantee it. And something strong needs to happen, just like on the meth labs, you know. We pretty well got that shut down. And so, somewhere our legislatures, they need to figure out what that balance is on that.
Greg, in addition to the drugs and the stealing of skid loaders, is there any other problems that businessmen that you see from law enforcement businessmen should be aware of?
You know, I tell you right now, as far as the businesses go, the biggest thing that we're seeing is the burglaries and the thefts. Scams are always, and I say that even for the businesses, because when I was a detective years ago, I won several $100,000 to hit a business. So, boy, you businessmen, they'll prey upon you. Phone scams, internet scams, and stuff like that. You know, one of my favorite sayings, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So take a minute, anytime you're going to do a transaction with somebody that you're unsure of, and make sure that is, you know, a good, not a scoundrel, you know, make sure it's a good person. So, John, I think as far as, and I certainly asked Josh to comment, but, you know, I think in the workplace, you guys with a lot of employees, I think the drug thing is something you have to be aware of, you know. I think that the thefts, I think the scams, and then one thing that, you know, we don't talk about a lot, but when it happened at Heston, you know, what a shock to see that in Kansas. I know, and I think, of course, and you know, again, you hope and you pray that it would never, ever happen anywhere. But we assisted Wamego PD last month on a deal at Balderson's. It was probably pretty close to a bad deal, and so we have resources to help on that stuff. Believe it or not, our emergency manager has some training stuff that we've sat in on. The FBI gave us a video a couple weeks ago on active shooter. We'll make all that available to you. Just let Josh know or let us know, and we'll do anything we can to help. But for us, those are some of the things that we're seeing.
Would some of that be where you have something where an employer can be, something that tells him, like, when he sees something that it's not right, that an employee might be on the way out?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely in the movies that we saw that
It's an FBI, Coming Storm.
So
It's a
it's a
DVD
way to
that-
recognize a problem before it happens.
Yeah.
And it's the best thing is when you recognize it, tell someone, somebody, because I mean, those clues are, I mean, they're very valuable clues and they need to be addressed.
And I think that the threat has always been there, but I think a lot of people go to sleep at night a lot easier when they say, well, it's not going to happen to me, it's always going to be somebody else. And you can say that every day until you die. The problem is, one day, why can't it be you? Or why isn't it you? So that's one of those things where I tell people it's going to happen to somebody. You want to try to be as active and as aware, and if you see something that just gives you a little bit of a twinge, your arm hairs stand up, there's probably something wrong. Usually your body gives you pretty good indicators. The clues are there. You just need to be aware of it and then not be afraid to call somebody. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. But if you're right, you know, we want to be ahead of the storm. You know, we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep everybody safe.
Joe, question,
No, we drug test before we hire, and that has, word got out, and it stops us from being bothered by people we don't wanna waste time with too. But then every so often we'll start suspecting a few guys, or hear rumors or something, then we have to do a surprise drug test, and because of the dang laws, you can't just single them out, you gotta test across thousands of others. With us, we have to test everybody in the whole area or something.
Can you, I'm not familiar with civil law, can you lottery, or do you have to just test a whole, I mean, can you every week just pull a name, or do you have to?
Well, you have to, if you send a man to school and he goes to some sort of training where he can, where he can identify specific characteristics, but you well, we just, every so often we say, hey, we're gonna drug test everybody.
Let me answer that for you. You have to have a written program that says what you're gonna do, but you can do random selection and you can also do reasonable suspicion. So it's just a matter of developing your program, but yes, civil law allows a random selection process. The training he's talking about is through reasonable suspicion. A lot of the transportation industries have people that are trained for that, so yes, it can be done.
I was curious. But that's made a big difference for you then?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then we got a dozen more surveillance cameras now, and we also have somebody there 24/7.
I don't know if you guys watch Channel 13, and not to start anything good or bad, but remember to start our views and stuff like that. So I found it fast. Well, I don't want to hack anybody off. Seaman High School started drug testing. I don't know if you guys saw that video on Channel 13. Seaman High School started drug testing, and the kids, from what the TV station uncovered, the kids think it's fantastic. It cut down, and don't hold me to this, but like their incidence of tardiness was down like 40 or 60%. Their incidence of altercations with teachers was down 40 or 60. One was 60, one was 40. But they're like, this is the greatest thing in the world. So it's again, we need to take measures to do something to stop the drug problem, because it's absolutely a problem. Somebody asked if there was more of it going on. Yes, there is at the county level. Absolutely, there's more of it. There is more people moving in, but there's more drugs, and it's our society. Again, when you go a state away, and it's okay, that weighs. You know, it's our values. You know, and there, I am confident that 20 years ago there wasn't near the, marijuana being smoked in our, not in school, but by our school kids. For the record, I don't know of any school in our county where the kids are lighting up in school, in any, and we hear that a lot of times, and that's probably something bad that we do. Is there's a lot of dope in that school, the kids are smoking, in that school. I don't know of any schools that are actually smoking in, but certainly before and after school, there's a problem. So, anyways, I had to throw that in there. So,
is there some kind of a detector system you can install in public schools that will pick up somebody that's smoking marijuana? Say like a breathalyzer type thing that you breathe into, or even like random testing once in a while in the public school system. So people just don't seem, they think they can get away with it when they have these things that they can detect them. I mean, is there something where you can set up?
I know that's something that they're working on, that they want to do, and I think a lot of that has got to do with drug driving and being able to, we have SFSTs that are really great when it comes to alcohol, but might not necessarily be as good when somebody's on marijuana or another narcotic. So they're trying to work on something that would be equivalent to our preliminary breath test when it comes to cars, so that we would be able to see what type of level that they're at. To my knowledge, I don't think they've got anything in a handheld device to be able to gauge that level. I do know that schools are a little bit different. They make what's called an alcohol flashlight, which are actually kind of neat. When I did school resource officer for Kickapoo Tribal, it's a flashlight that turns on. You have them blow across the top of the flashlight, and the light shuts off when it indicates alcohol in the breath. And so you're able to basically do everybody that goes into a school. It doesn't take any time at all. So the technology for alcohol is there. I think we're just a little bit behind when it comes to the drugs. And that's what makes me very leery is you get these states that are starting to approve, you know, marijuana to be legal. We've got no reason for law enforcement. We're trying to catch up.
What about the other innocent kids that don't wanna do this?
Right.
You know, I mean, they're getting dragged right into this too at the same time.
Right. But as we know, you know, as he stated, revenue's a very big thing. They're looking at, well, we can get this money off the marijuana and we'll be able to put it into the schools. I'm sorry to tell you, you can sell as much marijuana as you want, but it's not going to solve your school budget issues. And then on top of that, not only are you looking at needing to put money there, you're gonna have to put money in your social services as well. You're gonna have to pay gentlemen like that's sitting over here to be able to talk to somebody who develops schizophrenia, who's now extremely paranoid. We're not equipped in our state or most of the states in the U.S. to be able to handle that. And I don't care how much legal marijuana we sell, we're not going to be able to A, balance our state budget, and B, supply what we really need when it comes to social services, et cetera. And so that, again, I think that's very, very scary. We're putting the cart before the horse when it comes to some of this stuff because we're so money hungry, trying to solve our woes. So
We have three, like I said, we got 3 dogs. If anybody, if you ever want them, give us a call up at the sheriff's office and we'll sure visit with you about what service they can be and stuff like that. So that's the form of detective we have now for marijuana.
Yeah, like on occasion going to high school with the dog, sniff around.
And we've had, with help from the sheriff's department, I've got hold of their K-9 and they've done it in St. Mary's High School. Luckily, we didn't have any positive hits, which is good. That's what we want to see. If we could do it every day and have no cars hit on, that would make me happy.
Just tell them the dog's coming every once in a while, they don't know when.
Well, you know, and what they do, a lot of times they'll hold not a conference, they'll have everybody come in the auditorium and they tell them, hey, you know, this is what'll happen. The sheriff's department will come in with the K-9s every once in a while. They'll run through the parking lots. They can run through the schools with the permission of the schools. Once again, like you said, they can't really single out a particular locker, but they might do a whole run if they've got reasonable suspicion on it. But I tell you, if you were one of those ones that like to toke a little marijuana before and after school, be cognizant of the fact that the dogs are probably going to catch you. You probably had it in your car or your clothes smell like it, etc. And I tell you, everybody looks out the window and they're looking to see what the K-9s are doing and whose car is going to get hit on.
Two things. One that's concerned me on the business just west of St. Mary's. I've seen 4 near wrecks. One was wrecked, but it was a single vehicle. I don't think it's speeding. I think it's inattention. It's a concern of mine because I ask myself, what am I going to do when the big one happens? And I'm the first one on the scene. Second, it's much more mundane. I've seen stray cows. What is the proper response? I've called them into the sheriff's department. Is that the status quo?
Yeah, just give us a call. Dispatch is pretty good about knowing a lot of the landowners and who needs to get called and stuff, and the deputies will try to put them in or help out getting them put in, so. Yep, give us a call. Those are pretty hard on a car when you get hit, so.
They're worth a lot of money.
You got the welding shop out there? Yeah. I gotta stop in and see it sometime. That looks cool. So, now how long you guys been in business out there?
About 3 years out there.
Okay, I like that. That's neat.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll stop in and say hi one of these days.
Sounds good.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
When you are looking for drugs, do you run into constitutional problems with the parents and the families and things? Or, I mean, is it a search problem? I mean, what are the ground rules for searching?
Usually schools are a little bit easier. And like I said, I went through the SRO's school that they had in Kelly, PC. The schools will operate almost independently. They've got a separate set of rules that they have to follow. When you're an administrator at a school, they have permission to be able to go through your locker pretty much at will. Law enforcement doesn't. You know, we have to abide by, you know, what your rights are, and we're not going to be violating civil rights. Doesn't mean that we can't be there, but we're not going to have them acting as an agent for law enforcement and say, hey, you might check out locker 112, you know, I know their parents and they've got some issues. But schools are a little bit different when it comes to, because usually written in the school policy states that at any point you might be subject to search. And as administration, you're able to do that. But law enforcement is usually going to be secondhand when it comes to a lot of those aspects.
We've got pretty good policy wrote up to keep it. If we take the trouble, if we're gonna go to the work of trying to develop a good case, we certainly don't wanna go to court and then have it thrown out because we did a poor job, and we don't wanna violate anybody's rights. So we have good guidance from the courts on what we may not always agree with it, but they provide the guidance on how to proceed, and we certainly follow our policies to achieve that and not violate rights.
We have enough time for probably about one more question here. Anybody have any more questions? Father?
From the point of view of people in the community, what's most helpful for you and on the level of what we can do in regard to the drug problem?
If I may, we gotta work together. We really do. We gotta be a team. We gotta work together. I had a absolutely true story. I had a parent call me the other day, and they were pretty tough with me. They weren't out of line or nothing, but they let me know their displeasure with the drugs in the schools. And then they called back the very next day, very frustrated, because the person had been feeding them the information. They asked them to call me, and the person said, "I'm not gonna call in. I'm not a rat." And so we need help. I mean, so I've got, believe it or not, there's 28 deputies. And I hear a lot of times, well, holy cow, Sheriff, just a few years ago, Dean Taylor had, 6 or 7 deputies. Well, I've been on for 27 years now, and there was 13 when I started. Because I didn't want number 13, I skipped it and took number 14. So you look at our counties growing, you look how our society is, and again, I think we've degraded a little bit. You see all this stuff going on. We need your help. When I've got 4 deputies out, when Josh has got 1 police officer out, when Mego has one out, 850 square miles roughly, 25,000 people, 22,000, 27,000 cars a day on Highway 24. And wait till they block off 1 lane at Exel Road, and I've got to have a couple deputies there. We need your help bad, we really do. And whether it's drugs, whether it's thefts, whether it's suspicious people, take tag numbers, you take out your cell phone, take a picture, call us, point us in the right direction. We love help. So that's the best message I give, is we want your help. Make our community better with us.
When I'll reiterate what he said, the biggest thing that we've got is because of the size we are, we're very much not the us versus them mentality, and we can't be. We are a big community, and that's what we are. We're a community and a family inside Pot County. And the only way that we're going to be successful is by getting help from people around. And don't feel like we're unapproachable. Don't feel like you're going to bother us and not to make a phone call. Make that phone call and let us know. And we work together, we're going to be a lot more effective than trying to fragment and have law enforcement be a law enforcement and the community just be the community. If we work together, we'll be able to put a stop to a lot of the issues we've got. But the biggest thing is I think people just feel like they're bothering us. And it's not bothering us. I tell you, in St. Mary's, I've got some downtime. There's times that I'm busy and I wish I had downtime, but I've got downtime, and I'm never going to be too busy that I can't call you back that day and figure out what's going on and what I can try to help you with. And if I can't help you, I'll get a hold of somebody who can and get you an answer. That's my biggest thing, is just ensure that if you call, I'm going to answer the call, and I'm going to try to help you if I can. That's my goal.
Very good. Well, thank you very, very much for coming. We appreciate it. Thanks for taking So, Father, if you'd enter with a prayer, you can all mingle and speak to the sheriffs if you wish, if they're still around, if they don't get out, or the chief.
Father, and Son, and Holy Ghost, amen. Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
As was beginning, is now, shall be, world without end. Amen.
Sorrowful Magdalene Mary.
Pray for us.